be your own child. I say that all the time. Okay, so my name is Bridget Such. I am one of the co-directors of this co-op, Freedom Harbor Co-op, homeschool co-op, and originally we started this to help as many people who were trying to get out of the public school system that didn't have any resources. And so that's kind of where the co-op came from. We've kind of put together I think a pretty good resource for a lot of people. We have a Wednesday. We do Wednesdays in Ulaga at one location, and then this location here, we do 2 days. We do Tuesdays and Thursdays, and this one's located in Nowata. So we're growing, and so I think we're helping a lot of people, and so I think that's why we work very well with what Andrea Scott's trying to do. And so we just want to try and help educate as many people as possible about what's going on in the homeschool world. So if anybody has questions about the co-op thing, like catch me after, or there's a couple other people that can help you. But I'm going to turn this over to Andrea Scott, and she's going to talk to you about everything going on with homeschooling.
Hello, my name is Andrea Scott, and my husband's over here, Robert. He's helping with technical stuff and all sorts. Yes, we're homeschooling parents. We've been homeschooling our kids since, we've got 5 kiddos, ages 3 to 14, and they're gobs of fun. Just soak them up every day. And we've been homeschooling since the get-go. It's a wonderful experience, and for everybody, it's a different experience. For every child, it's a different experience. And that's what's so wonderful about homeschooling, is that we can cater to each child. So we're going to be talking a lot about why homeschooling is so important here in Oklahoma, how it's protected, and all sorts of great stuff. Okay, oh yeah, let me talk about the flyers that you all just received. Okay, so I've got your new logo on there.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, there's that flyer, and then I started the Oklahoma Coalition to Protect Constitutional Homeschooling back whenever school choice was trying to get passed. So you'll see on one of those flyers, that's our actual old original flyer, mini-sized, of what we had going around the Capitol. I just gathered as many homeschool supporting groups in Oklahoma as I could to try to combat that bill, because we don't want state funding. What's state funded is state run, you know. So, and we're going to go really into details a little bit more with the presentation here. But some great quotes on that page there. And then I also attached a flyer for the Constitutional Home Educators Alliance, CHIA. They're in the coalition, and we stay in close contact with them. And so let's go ahead and get started on our slideshow here. Oh, okay. So there are 4 different types of schooling. We've got public schooling, online charter schools, private schools, homeschooling, and online charter schools are not homeschooling. A lot of us think that they are if we're at home and they're doing an online charter school, that that's homeschooling, but it's still a publicly run, you know, it's public schools online, basically, is what that is. So those are our different types. What defines homeschooling? Free of government influence and instruction. Other means of education is what we are, and that's what we fall under in our Constitution. You'll see here in a little bit. We've got co-op and independent. This is a co-op I'm in right now. And then independently, you know, whenever you're at home and you're doing tea time or whatever it is that you do with your kids, that's homeschooling. So, okay, homeschool rights are protected in Oklahoma. In our Constitution, Article 13, Section 4, it reads, the legislature shall provide for the compulsory attendance at some public or other school unless other means of education are provided of all the children in the state who are sound in mind and body between the ages of 8 and 16 years for at least 3 months in each year. Now I actually have that bold here in this, not just unless other means of education, but also look at the ages here. We've got ages 8 through 16 and only for 3 months in each year. That is in our Constitution. But we've got a new law, or not a new law, it came in the 70s. Go ahead and show, okay. It's actually unconstitutional what we have in the state statutes, Title 70, and it could be challenged in court if ever anybody wanted to do that, in which reads, It shall be unlawful for a parent, guardian, or other person having custody of a child who is over the age of 5 years and under the age of 18 years to neglect or refuse to cause or compel such child to attend and comply with the rules of some public, private, or other school unless other means of education are provided for the full term of the schools. The schools of the district are in session. So that's a whole lot more than just 3 months, and that's also 5 to 18 instead of 8 to 13. So I'm bringing this up because we've got people like the Amish. They homeschool till about 14 years of age, and then they do like an apprentice work with their kids. You know, we've got unschoolers that have their own way of, real world experiences that they bring their children into, a customized, this is so, this is just not constitutional, so, but let's go ahead. No, I'm sorry, does anybody have any questions so far? No comments? Okay. All right, so how your tax dollars pay for education. This is important. Every tax payer in Oklahoma pays for public schooling, whether or not they have school-aged children, okay? So it's not, everybody's paying into the pot. It's not just, I'm getting my money back. You've got everybody paying for education in Oklahoma. The 2021-2022 year costs were $11,000 per student. Okay. What changed? 2023 school choice vouchers, HB 1934. $5,000 to $7,500 per child for public school, $1,000 per child for homeschoolers. Okay, so I say here it's a welfare, not a tax return. You'll actually find that you're receiving more back than what you actually paid in. So it really is a welfare, and you can be controlled by taking state, money. And that's pretty much what it's about. Government expansion in all forms of education, now all forms, not just public schools, but now the private schools. This is what it's opened up. Private schools are now, they need to be, they've got their issue too. They should have an issue with this by taking state money. But, I'm just working for the homeschoolers. Failed in the Senate in 2022 and passed in 2023. Okay, go ahead. Okay, so Tax Commission is explicitly auditing homeschoolers. They kind of sneak it in there. This section right here describes the $1,000 that homeschoolers are going to be getting. And then down here, it says the Tax Commission shall have the authority to conduct an audit or contract for the auditing of the receipts for qualified expenses submitted pursuant to paragraph 2 of subsection C of this section. Well, that was the homeschoolers. So it's definitely just the homeschoolers are going to be getting audited. Okay, so who supported this? Americans for Prosperity, Oklahoma Council of Public Affairs, Oklahoma Conservative Political Action Committee, Oklahoma Second Amendment Association, and Oklahomans for Health and Parental Rights all supported HB 1934 school choice. Okay, 13 other states with school choice programs. We've got Arkansas, Florida, Georgia. It's not just an Oklahoma idea. Indiana, Louisiana, Maine, Maryland, Mississippi, North Carolina, Ohio, Utah, Vermont, Wisconsin. I have here the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization, UNESCO, plans to use government regulations to ensure equity in private choice options. So this is a lot bigger than just an Oklahoma program. How to avoid. Live within your means. Determine what your family can afford without needing to take government assistance. Home education is primarily at home. That's a great savings right there. Tailor-fitting curriculum to each child with expense in mind. Co-ops are an option if your family can't afford it. Extracurriculars are extra. That's your dance and your music and your ballet. It's all extra. If you can't afford it, pick free options, schedule play dates, or go to homeschool events. Those are all ways that you can afford to homeschool your children. Open door to enforcement. Okay, these are the bills that were for the spring 2024 legislation season. These two that I have in bold here have returned, so we're seeing these coming back right now. SWOPE, her bill, the scary one, and then the Tim Tebow bill by Kane. But I'm going to go ahead and go through them all. HB 4130, SWOPE, Mans and DEG. It has homeschooling parents must coordinate with DHS every 6 months. All homeschool or all household members must complete DHS background check. A letter of intent on personal parenting decisions submitted to DHS. A statement to DHS for personal decision to educate by other means. Okay, the mission is about control and capturing data on families. This discriminates against homeschoolers and is a Fourth Amendment violation. Law regarding abuse, report, and CPS are already in place. So, yeah, this really is, it discriminates, it's just awful. It's a horrible, unconstitutional bill they're trying to get passed. Okay, HB 283 from Kane. Tim Tebow, he was the big, what kind of player? Florida football player. Okay, so making it so homeschoolers may participate in public school activities. The Department of Education will set rules for those homeschoolers who participate. It wouldn't be fair to public schoolers if they didn't. They have to have a special grade point average, normally kids, to be able to participate in sports. I mean, there are some, rules, and that would make sense that anybody that takes advantage of, the school sports should fall under those, criteria. So, yeah, it's room for regulating homeschoolers. This is an opportunity, and it sounds great, but really homeschoolers already have. I've been here with many other options. Having access to sports is not a real issue for homeschoolers. I'm sure this co-op right here might even have a sports sort of thing going on with it. A lot of co-ops have that option for sports, but then there's also NOAA sports. Plenty of options. You don't need to take advantage of your local school for that.
Also, like Florida, where Tim Tebow was homeschooled, they're a lot more strict on, while we might see as homeschooling, very free from government involvement, but in Florida and the other states that have passed Tim Tebow laws, they do require you checking in with the government. You can't just show up with your kid and play in sports, and that's where Oklahoma's different, is that we do have I think what is it, homeschool legal, what's the group that, there's a website that shows all the laws for all the states, and yeah, it's a homeschool legal defense, and if you look actually what is required, I would almost argue that there's a lot of those, like other states are far more restrictive than Oklahoma. Oklahoma is, if you educate by other means, you're not involved with the state at any way along. And so when you see like Florida and other states that have passed Tim Tebow laws, I mean, you're basically, your child might as well be in public school at that point.
Okay, and then during the spring we had HB 3585 from Strom. Homeschoolers collecting tax credit must do regular state certified testing. Assessments would be done at a state authorized facility. This is just like what you would have had with your online charter school. But that's a public school online. This should not be something that homeschoolers should be required to do. Anyone who doesn't comply must return funds received from the Parental Choice Tax Credit Act to the Tax Commission within 60 days. The student's assessment score is permanently in a state record for transcript purposes. Okay, so this is HB 1934 from Provenzano and Waldron, both Democrats here. Now, whenever school choice was not a law yet, I actually talked to Waldron, and he was against school choice. Of course he was. He was a Democrat. He didn't want us taking the public school money. He wanted to stay in public schools. And he warned us about this type of bill is going to come and get us. And sure enough, next session, because it passed, he's the one that's actually offering the bill that he warned me about. This is what it is. must submit a detailed report to the tax commission of how the parental choice tax credit was spent, providing an explanation and even demonstrate the direct impact the chosen resources have on the child, each child. Then the tax commission, not the Department of Education, will provide a reporting form which they may audit and investigate to ensure their compliance. That actually already is in school choice. I just pointed that out.
So they're avoiding like the Department of Education because it would go against our constitutional right in the state. They're using DHS and they're using the tax commission to get around.
And did you explain the tax commission? Was that part of your presentation? That there has been the Oklahoma Tax Commission is hiring school choice, representatives to deal with the receipts that are, or the what do you call it, the claims that are filed on your taxes at the end of the year, which is why, as Andrea pointed out, in the actual statute, they're very discreet. It's very hard to get homeschoolers out of the statute because it's very hidden in there. They say educated by other means in the beginning, and we see that as, oh, those are homeschoolers. But then down within the bill, they'll just keep referring back to the paragraph C2, the rules, and that's why, why else are they hiring Oklahoma Tax Commission? Why else would they be hiring, school choice auditors?
Okay, yeah, go ahead. And then next we have Senate Bill 2007 by Dom. A lot of these were from Republicans, if you noticed. It was, school choice was a really hard time for me because I just couldn't believe that this is not a conservative idea at all, but they're all supporting it. And they would always say, oh, well, you can just opt out. That was always their defense, you could just opt out. Well, there will come a time where whoever does participate in school choice, I'm not reading his bill yet, but whoever does participate in school choice, they're going to be the example for all of us, whoever takes it. So there'll be that data collection. And it's a slippery slope. It really is to, having, more regulations on
first, when we were at the Capitol, the politicians, the legislature said, don't worry, we'll never pass school choice. And then it slipped in at the last minute and passed. And then it was, well, if you don't take it, you don't have to worry about it. But I think the argument there is that, like Andrea said, you are the data now. Those that take the tax credit become the data that the government needs to regulate all of us. So while we don't know, that's the beauty of it, because there's no data on homeschoolers. There could be 30,000 homeschool students in Oklahoma. There could be, I've heard 5% to 10% is the estimate of homeschool children. And you're talking, that could be, there's 700, 800,000 students enrolled, so you're looking at what I say, 30, is that right? 30 to 70,000 homeschool students. So if 500 take the credit and they exploit the money for some reason, we all of us, 30,000, 70,000 fall into that data pool. It doesn't take many a few rotten eggs is what the legislature needs to regulate homeschooling.
Okay, so for Dom's bill, it was a property tax relief for homeschoolers. This homestead exemption sounds great. We'll have an extra $1,000 added for any homestead where there are dependents who are homeschooled. An application must be made using a form by the tax commission, but the burden of proof falls on the family. What detailed information will they require? I mean, private education at home is what it is. Private schooling is a private thing, and how you choose to educate your kid and customize it for each one, that's something that you shouldn't have to share with anybody. It makes sense with anybody. So, that's kind of where the state is starting to meddle in, our private business, our other means of education. So, that might be it. Is that it? Yep. This is the new flyer that we made. So, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Yeah, go ahead.
When you were showing off all the bills, you said those.
Can you take that? Oh, you got it. No, just speak
Oh,
hospitable. Yeah.
Okay, when you were showing us the slide that said, that was this slide right here, you said those first two have come back. What does that mean they've come back?
Okay, so yeah. Oh, well, you
You want to talk about it?
Well, you go ahead.
Okay, so recently this year, they have the interim studies, and those are what legislature sets up before they start issuing their bills for the year, because there's like 3,000 or 4,000 bills that get laid out every year. And so I guess I would assume a method to make their bill popular or explain their bill is to create an interim study, and it's to get people from the community, to get other legislatures around, to discuss it. But anyway, the Common Education was had two interim studies, which included bills that were similar to Swope's and Kane's, Tim Tebow.
Very similar.
And I was able to attend the Tim Tebow interim study, and then Jana, who's with Gia, had gone to Swope's study, which was basically to rediscuss, ways to get these bills approved, get them through. Any bill on education is going to go through the Common Education committee, which is the start to get your bill out of there. I mean, any committee that, what's the Schoolhouse Rock, how to become a bill. There's you start out, they take those 3,000 bills, they disperse them amongst these committees, and if you can get your bill out of committee, then it has a pretty good chance of, being passed by the complete legislature. And so they want to discuss a potential bill that they're getting ready to put forward in this interim study. And so Tim Kaine was there and brought his guest speakers to discuss it, and I forgot the lady, Donna with, I forgot the group. Homeschool Oklahoma was there to make a statement against the Tim Tebow bill. And then in addition to that, this is a little out of my understanding, but the OSSAA, the Oklahoma Secondary Sports, there's all the public sports, all the high school sports that you have are kind of overseen by the OSSAA. I'm not too familiar with that, but they're the Oklahoma Secondary Education. I'm not even sure what it stands for, but they actually came in and said that all their member schools didn't want, a Tim Tebow bill in the state. But it's also a strategy session for what the author of the bill needs to do to get it passed. And interesting to me was the main speaker of the Tim Tebow interim study was a preacher who was discussing how his child couldn't attend public schooling. And what I found odd about it was that his argument was that the public school would have benefited from him being in his homeschool student being on the team. However, when I talked to him after the session, his son got a scholarship ride in college by doing homeschooled sports through an independent organization, independent of the public school system. So I found it incredibly odd where there's no lack of opportunity for homeschool students to be enticed to put their kid back into the public school system. Anyway, so these are two that are probably, we haven't seen bills yet, but once they start the interim study, it's their plan to put a bill forward again.
And just like school choice, it failed the first year, but then it passed the second year.
Can you mention what was discussed at that study?
I wasn't there. We need to
I actually watched the interim study, and I like Andrea pointed out, I'm more focused on the conservative bills, because those are the ones I think that tack away, liberty is lost in baby steps. They put this bill out and they say there's no harm to liberty, but they're kind of tacking away at your freedom. They're getting their foot in the door. I think when people look at Swope's bill, it's so over the top. It's her bill last year was bringing DHS into your house every 6 months. That was last year's bill. This year, she brought a speaker. Her main speaker was Coalition for Responsible Home Education. Yeah. And so the irony of this coalition, which is from back east in New England, is if you look at their profile, these are all successful homeschooled adults that are going out and saying they could have had better opportunities if, you know, they had a more regulated homeschool environment. And I just find that incredibly ironic that, you know, and I don't know if, like, maybe, because I went to public school. Andrea was homeschooled, I went to public school, and I would say that when I see public school children, they're very successful, they're very independent-minded, and anyway. So that the interim study was pushing for signing up. Yeah, and that's the thing is just sign up with the school district. You know, a notification, just the means to get your foot in the door. All homeschoolers need to notify the government that they are homeschooling. Excuse me, all homeschooling parents would be required to notify the government that they intend to homeschool their children, which a lot of these states, when you, and I tend to disagree, a lot of those states, I wish I could pull up that website, the Homeschool Legal Defense, the one I mentioned earlier, it shows all these very low regulation states. I find that incredibly regulated, that I have to notify the government that I intend to homeschool my children. Yeah, that was that interim study, was just, you know, sign up with the government and we'll go from there. I don't think they had, I don't believe they had a DHS check in that particular interim study, which is probably the strategy. Last year, you know, nobody wanted to touch a bill where DHS, you know, was coming into the home. And this year it's like, well, how about let's just start with a notification. You know, that's back to that liberty is lost in baby steps. But, let's see.
I can't even keep up how as it is. How on earth are they going to keep up with homeschool?
Well, and that's kind of the point.
Why?
Homeschoolers make, yeah, that, you know, you can't keep children safe in the public school environment. And now you want to come into the, you know, a parent, you know, a homeschool parent's home.
Being investigated for things anyways,
Right,
in that
yeah.
system, so it's like,
Yeah, and that was also part of the interim study, was the truancy law. And Andrea touched on the truancy law. That was part of that other statute, that state statute she showed, which had stricter requirements on how the length of educating your child versus the actual Oklahoma Constitution. And that was part of the argument is that parents are skirting truancy laws because when the state or the cops come to write you a violation for not putting your kid in school, they claim that they're going to homeschool their kids, and they you know, circumvent. Now they're out of the system, so I guess at that point DHS isn't able to come into the home. All I can say about that is that if we're putting parents in jail or fining them for not putting their kids in school, I mean, it seems like we have bigger problems to deal with than to. That actually, I found an article on an Oklahoma newspaper from years back where there was like 2,300 parents that the state had called to court because their kids were truant from public school system. That's just my opinion. I just don't think compulsory education should mean throwing parents in jail because their kids don't make it, you know, 100% of the time to school. And again, schools get their money based on the kids being in there. Like, you know, the money is available, but if your child doesn't actually, like every day, that's why they take attendance when we're kids. When we went to public school as kids, they want to take attendance because they got to turn that into the state to get their money. So, you know, who do we care about? Do we care about the kids' education, or do we care about getting our money from the state? I mean, that's what I would ask the superintendent. That's, you know, it's so important that we have to arrest the parent. But that's a whole other issue. So that's my rant.
Yeah, Swope's bill is definitely, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, so are the last three, have those already passed then?
Now, they could come back too.
No,
Okay.
No, none of these passed.
I don't even
Okay,
think they got out of
so-
committee.
Yeah.
We're just waiting for those first two to come back. and
Exactly,
see
we're
if we
just
have to vote
watching,
on
we're
that.
just watching and we know that these are coming back
Okay.
because of the interim
Well,
studies that they're having on them.
It's potential.
Yeah,
It's highly likely. that we'll
They
see
won't
another
be,
one.
there'll be different numbers. They'll be House Bill something else.
Yeah.
Yeah, but,
Do they seem to have a lot of support?
Not
well,
particularly,
yeah.
but school choice didn't have any support either.
Until
And-
it did.
Until
actually,
it
it
did.
grabbed a couple of grassroots groups. I just mentioned OK2A and OKHPR both jumped on the bandwagon, and they even one did a video. The other one just, they thought it was great.
Well, it's a national, the school choice was a national push. I mean, the first time I learned about it, it was being pushed by This Americans for Prosperity, which is it's like a Koch brothers super PAC. And, these types, they want their own control. It's a conservative control as opposed to the other side of the aisles type of control. That's my opinion.
And I noticed that when I paid my taxes, there was a notice saying that the homeschool tax credit has already met the
Right, yeah.
amount. So
Yeah.
anybody who hasn't paid the taxes yet, they're not getting it anyway.
Well, and then and then talking about like the private school side of it, that's a whole thing. We're just focused on getting homeschoolers out of that, control situation. But as the private schools came on, they were taking the money on behalf of their parents, like Wasso Prep, which is anyway, their plan was to basically sign all of their parents up for the tax credit, get as much money as they could, and then when the money ran out, they were going to give the rest of the students grants to come in. So Wasso Prep originally was $3,000 a year, and they upped their tuition to $77,000 to $7,500 a year to get the money, because I think the private school credit started at $7,500, and then the more your annual income was, it went up or it dropped to like $7,000 and $5,000. So they got as much money as they could from their parents, and they made the parents come up there and sign the checks over to the school. And then if the money ran out, or if they got enough money, all the rest of the students just got like grants or what do they call it, awards to go to that school. And I don't know, there's been articles about how private school tuition has gone up since the school choice bill was passed. So.
And that's what I'm worried about with co-ops, that they'll raise their rates too, because that kind of forces the parents to have to participate, if the rates go up. So, it's just a mess. Any other questions? Yeah, the slope bill is definitely the one that's grabbing everybody's attention, just like last season. That was the big concern, but like Robert said, we're not really paying much attention to those conservative ones. They just kind of sneak in. So we got to keep our eyes on all of them, even the ones that are just the baby steps. So.
Is there anything that we can do before they pass?
Well, they have so I think the idea is that I think like the CHIA there's a couple of homeschool groups that go up to the Capitol every year.
So CHIA and Homeschool Oklahoma, both of them have homeschool days. So I don't set up a homeschool day. I just sneak in there with my flyers and drop them off in each, office.
I mean, it's a good time to
And
get together as a group, as a community.
Yes, exactly. I'll go in on those homeschool days. I mean, I love them. I try to make both of them. And they're normally in the spring, I think. I think they're in the spring. I want to say February. Yeah, February.
But
I think
do they
both of them.
do they pass out like flyers to
They
the
go
legislature
from,
that say,
yes, exactly. They go to each,
we are going to know. like,
Exactly.
so.
Exactly.
It's
Yeah.
great education, teaching kids about government.
Oh,
It is. I love
yeah,
taking the whole
absolutely.
family whenever I can. Yeah. Yes. Yes. But I've seen individual moms go up there, you know, with the kids in tow, and they just make sure that they talk to as many legislators as they can. And some of those offices are hidden. There's actually like a 6th floor, and you got to find a special way of how to get up
Oh,
there.
right, yeah.
Which just happens to be where Swope is.
That's right.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. So anyway, it's quite the experience. But yeah, get up there and talk to them, and as best as you can. You're not going to catch them, and most of them, oh, I got to go. I'm on the run. You know.
They're legal assistants. I'm not sure. I think they're legal assistants.
Oh,
Anyway,
yes,
they'll have a legislative assistant.
Yeah.
They'll actually be in their office even if they're on the floor. You can leave the flyer and discuss with them. You can sign in and you can leave them a note.
Yes.
And
Yeah, definitely say if you're the constituent, you know, you put your town, where you're from, so that they know they need to represent you. So, yeah, go ahead.
So this is our first year in Oklahoma homeschool. We actually just had this last year, months. So on our taxes, are you saying don't pay?
You're not even market?
yeah, because if you take the school choice tax credit, it's going to be a refund on your taxes. So when you file the taxes at the end of the year and talk about like control, I mean, there's like, when we were arguing against school choice in Oklahoma, the legislature says, you know, why do you care? There's 5,000 tax credits in Oklahoma about that everybody's available, you know, to take. Not everybody. I mean, if you look at them, they're like tornado relief, oil, gas, you know, there's 5,000 credits, 5,000 means of controlling not only like an individual, but also like a business. So, I mean, when you take the tax credit, you're opening yourself up to the tax commission's audit, and you're putting yourself in that data pool with the government. And is it worth it? I mean, it's expensive. It can be expensive to homeschool, but only if I guess only if you make it that way. I don't think we spend a whole lot of money, and we sure don't spend. I think it's $1,000 a year. I mean, maybe we spend $1,000 a year. I'm not for sure. I mean, so.
No, we don't. I mean, we have our kids in music lessons, but besides that, you know, and then you buy curriculum here and there, but it doesn't add up to $1,000.
So the interesting thing is like, so I work in engineering, and they pay Oklahoma has a $5,000 a year tax credit for 5 years to bring aerospace engineers into the state. And then, so I work with aerospace engineers that take the $5,000 a year credit, they're locked in here, and then to turn around and take the school choice, you know, credit to put their kids into private school, which they would have already done. They were going to come to Oklahoma, the $5,000 that you all pay so that my colleagues can have a job in Oklahoma, that they were going to come to Oklahoma anyway, and then turn around and they would have put their kids in homeschooling anyway. I'm sorry, private schooling, and paid for it. But you're paying for that as well, and that's just one example. I mean, it's just rampant across the whole state. They don't call it welfare, but I mean, the money the government hands out is to control us. It is a means to, you know, influence what the state wants. You know, they can get into like Workforce Oklahoma. You know, they want your kid in public school so that they can put them into the workforce. You know, they don't want independent thought, and all this money that the government's handing out is to control you. Everything. You know, nothing requires you to give your kid a social security number, except for they can't make it in this world. They can't get a decent paying job without a social security number, and you can't, like, how do they get you to sign up for it? Well, they give you the money, you know, on your taxes at the end of the year. You get so much money for, you know, you cannot claim your child as a dependent on your taxes unless you have a social security number for it.
Any other questions?
Disagreements.
Yeah, any disagreement?
Lay it on me.
As of right now, legally, what all do we need to do in order to homeschool? Like, whenever I started 5 years ago, I sent a letter to my kid's school, and that's really all I've done, and I just sent it myself.
Okay, so far, that's all I'm
That's
familiar
not
with.
even, I don't even think I think it might be in the law to take your kids out of take your kids out of public school. I think you might be
If you've already
required.
been in the system.
If they've already been in the
So
system.
my oldest son, my
Yeah.
two youngest never
10, yeah.
And then I took him out in 5, and that's it. So that was it.
They try to, like when we were talking before, they try to have you adhere, I didn't even know this until you explained the Constitution part where it's the 8 to 16, you said?
Yes.
8 to 16.
And then the 5
yeah.
to 18.
Exactly.
They're trying to push the 5 to 18 as well as you have to go, is it 180 days?
Yeah, I think so.
Right, 180
Versus the 3 months that it was.
So it's educating everybody about that because nobody, I didn't know this, nobody knows. So technically, if we did less than 180 days and we got pulled in or something,
Well, they've never,
push it.
I don't think it's ever, we should have put down the legal cases. There's 3 legal cases that have kind of defined Oklahoma's homeschooling laws, and I need to put those in the presentation. And they give a little insight into how we got to where we're at today. But I would say that there was a I'm gonna botch this. There was something in the 1920s where somebody challenged, compulsory education and lost, and that kind of gave the legislature a little more, gunpowder, legal arm to kind of rein in. But I would say, I mean, none of that's ever really been. I don't think anybody's really in the homeschooling realm in Oklahoma has ever been, fined or given a ticket. And that's what it's going to take to challenge, a state statute that was put in the 70s.
But it sounds like we're just waiting for one bad case.
Right.
Like when I lived in California, we all know about the family that the kids were found, never went to school in horrible conditions. And that's what it
I mean,
sounds like they're waiting for one
For a
case
situation like
here.
that.
And then they can say, see, we need to have these kids watched and controlled. But with the public school,
Well-
they seem to have more problems these days.
And that was part of Swope's was it Swope's? No, it was Swope's, but also the Kane's inner study. The legislature in the Common Core Committee, Common Education Committee, was very pro homeschooling and very, these are better. These are kids that test better than, publicly schooled kids. These are kids that, do better, that are, actually sought out by colleges. And I don't know, back when Andrea and I were talking about homeschooling, I was amazed how, she was homeschooled, she went to college. It was pretty straightforward to go to college. It's that you don't need, you took your GED at like 16,
Yes.
but you didn't need it.
Yeah,
to-
no, you don't need a
You don't
GED.
need it.
No. Okay, so I'm just going to go ahead and give a little backstory about our oldest. I taught him how to read. He was really young, preschool. And then Robert, he was like, well, he probably needs to go to school. So we sent him we did Epic because I had already, taught him at home. So we started doing Epic at home for preschool, and it wasn't too invasive, but kindergarten was pretty bad. They required the testing for kindergarten, and it just sucked the fun out of learning, and it made him cry. The test would never end. It would end whenever you started getting wrong answers, and you never got a wrong answer.
And our teacher wasn't a teacher. She was almost like a DHS worker. She didn't like it. She was very nice, but she was required to come into our home like all the time, to the point where she was probably not coming into our home because we didn't like it, and she didn't like to do it. She wanted to be a teacher, but now she's a social worker for the state of Oklahoma. And at the same time, and then they made us take we didn't want any electronics. It was like, hey, here's your, state issued iPad. It's like, no, we don't want an iPad. And then finally, relented and took the iPad. And then I had all this state tracking because I used my phone contact start that iPad up for my son, which put all this tracking software on my phone and his iPad. This is terrible. So I'm like and then I'm trying to give this iPad back to the school, and they don't want to take it. They're like, why don't you want this iPad? So,
Yeah, it's a mess. So, okay, and I don't have any of the slides, but I will go ahead and mention this. Walters, the superintendent, he's got this AI thing that's going on, if you've seen the AI thing. So he's making it so that every kid in Oklahoma has access to a personal AI assistant to help them learn how to read and track them, and yeah, not good. And so Tulsa Public Schools was the first to have it, but now it's good because it's got the Book of Virtues in it, which really sells the conservatives, but it's still the same program. It's still the AI assistant. And yeah, and if it's available to homeschoolers in our own homes, you know.
And the beauty of homeschooling is that you can do different approaches than the traditional, public school method. You don't have to do the drill and kill math. There's other ways to.
That's certainly not the way to learn, and I think most homeschoolers would agree that, having an AI assistant is not anything that you want available. No. So it's just interesting.
Like it's anywhere. If you want an AI, you don't need it from them.
Yes.
I have Gemini on my phone. I'm sure Apple will have Siri or whatever.
If your family's comfortable with that sort of thing,
Well,
you
if
know.
you need that, it's already there, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
I try to enhance it, but
Yeah, it does not need to be a state-funded program. Yeah.
I don't like it.
Yeah.
I don't want it.
So it's just interesting. It's mind-boggling how this is coming.
Well,
from
AI
conservatives.
in my opinion, AI takes innovation away because people create AI, it duplicates. It's
I'm a
AI.
realtor and I love AI for the description. For
Yeah,
the
yeah.
description of property, it's fantastic.
Right.
I don't have to. It makes
If you're like
my-
duplicating repetitive
But for
tasks,
like kids to learn, that's not necessarily how they're going to learn. Like, yeah. So I don't know. Like there are places for it,
Right,
but not
yeah.
not in a learning environment.
Yes. And a private choice.
Yes.
These are private choices that we should be making about our kids' learning curriculum.
Yeah.
There's a reason why we pulled them, if we had it in
Right,
public
yeah,
school,
exactly.
we wanted to take their education in our own hands. Because there was clearly something not working, or something we disagreed with, or something in the public school system. Why would we want to pull that back into our home?
Absolutely not. Yes, exactly. And it sounds all good because it's provided. Your taxes pay for it, so that really kind of sells us on. We need to take advantage of this because we're already having to pay for it anyway. But no, it's definitely a form of tracking, and it's not necessary. Not good. Any other questions? Yeah.
Will we have access to your slideshow?
Email it.
Yeah, I guess I can email it. Yeah, I can email it. Yeah, and then we're going to try to make the video available online too. So, all right. Any other questions? No?
Thanks.
Yes, you're welcome.